Title: The Pulse of the Earth and the Guiding Spirits. As the sun began its descent behind the mountains, the forest came alive with the whispers of the ancient trees. The wind, soft yet persistent, carried with it the rhythm of the earth's heartbeat, deep and steady. Far in the distance, beyond the hills, the world seemed to breathe in sync with the land. The pulse of the earth, ancient and unyielding, resonated through the air, through the soil, through the very soul of every living being. And it was in this sacred moment that the spirits, invisible to the eye but felt in every corner of the earth, began their dance. Their whispers were like the rustling of leaves, a gentle caress in the hearts of those who could listen with more than just their ears. There was one, a wanderer, who heard the call. She had walked for days through the forest, drawn by a force she could not understand, a feeling in her chest that urged her forward. Her name was Alara, a child of the earth, born with the gift of sensing the unseen. She had been raised in the ways of her people, who revered the spirits and understood the land's language. But even with all the teachings, this journey felt different. It was as though the earth itself had summoned her. She walked through the dense forest, the path covered by thick roots and soft moss, her feet sinking gently into the earth as though the land was welcoming her. The trees towered above her, their leaves shimmering with the last light of day. She felt the energy around her, the ancient magic of the forest, and with every step, the pulse of the earth grew stronger, vibrating through her bones. As she reached the heart of the forest, the air grew thick with the scent of the earth, fresh rain mingled with the musk of the trees. She knelt down and placed her hands on the ground, feeling the steady rhythm of the pulse beneath her fingertips. It was as if the earth itself was alive, breathing in time with her. Alara. The voice was soft, a whisper carried by the wind, yet it was clear. She looked around, her heart quickening. The voice seemed to come from everywhere, from the very earth itself. Alara, you have come. The ground beneath her began to tremble, gently at first, as though the earth itself was waking up. The trees around her swayed, their branches reaching towards the sky, as if beckoning the stars. She could feel the presence of the spirits now, their energy wrapping around her like a warm embrace. They were not seen with the eyes, but felt with the heart, their ancient wisdom and power flowing through her like a river. Alara, you are the chosen one, the voice spoke again, this time more clearly. The pulse of the earth calls for your strength. The time has come for you to walk the path of the spirits, to carry the earth's will. Alara's breath caught in her throat. She had heard stories of those chosen by the earth, but she had never imagined herself as one of them. Yet here she was, standing at the very heart of the forest, surrounded by the spirits, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. It was both overwhelming and humbling. What is it that I must do? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. The earth is in danger, Alara. A great imbalance is spreading across the land. The harmony between the spirits and the earth is weakening. The ancient roots that bind us all are being threatened by dark forces, forces that seek to disrupt the natural flow of life. You must journey to the sacred mountains, where the earth's heart beats strongest. There, you will find the key to restoring the balance. Alara felt a surge of determination rise within her. She knew this was her calling, the reason she had always felt drawn to the earth, to the spirits, to the land. She was not just a wanderer, she was a guardian, a protector of the earth's pulse. The spirits began to guide her, their whispers becoming clearer, their presence more palpable. She followed their direction, walking deeper into the forest, towards the mountains that lay hidden beyond the trees. Along the way, the spirits showed her the signs of the earth's distress. Plants withered, streams ran dry, and the creatures of the forest moved restlessly. It was as though the world itself was in pain. But with each step, Alara grew more confident. She could feel the strength of the earth beneath her feet, the pulse growing stronger with every moment. It was as if the land was telling her that she was not alone in this journey, that the spirits were with her, guiding her forward. After days of travel, Alara reached the foot of the sacred mountains. The air here was thin, and the winds howled through the jagged peaks, but the pulse of the earth was louder than ever. She could feel it in her chest, steady and unyielding. The mountains seemed to pulse in rhythm with her heart. At the top of the highest peak, Alara found what she had been seeking. There, in a small, hidden cavern, lay an ancient stone, its surface etched with symbols that glowed faintly in the moonlight. This was the heart of the earth, the source of the land's pulse. It was here that the balance had been kept for millennia, and it was here that Alara would restore the harmony. The spirits surrounded her, their whispers now filled with urgency and hope. Alara knelt before the stone, placing her hands upon it. The pulse of the earth flowed into her, filling her with an overwhelming sense of power and purpose. She closed her eyes and spoke the ancient words the spirits had taught her, words that had been passed down through the generations. The earth trembled, the pulse of the land growing stronger, and in that moment, Alara felt the dark forces that had threatened the land retreat. The balance was being restored. As the winds calmed and the night settled, Alara stood, her heart racing but steady. The earth was whole again, and she had played her part. The spirits whispered their gratitude, their voices like a lullaby in her mind. Alara, the earth is at peace. The pulse of the land is strong once more. You have done well. She smiled, feeling the earth beneath her feet, the pulse steady and strong. The journey had been long, but it had been worth it. The land was alive, and so was she. And with that, Alara turned towards the horizon, ready to continue her journey, guided by the pulse of the earth and the spirits that walked with her. As Alara began her descent from the sacred mountain, the air seemed different. The earth beneath her feet no longer trembled with fear. Instead, it resonated with a sense of peace and renewal. The wind whispered through the trees, and the world felt alive with a quiet joy. The spirits, their presence now more gentle and serene, guided her every step, their voices now like soft songs carried on the breeze. The forest, once heavy with the weight of imbalance, had begun to bloom once again. Flowers that had long since withered now lifted their heads toward the sun. The streams, which had once been dry and cracked, now flowed with crystal clear waters, their ripples reflecting the light of the setting sun. The creatures of the forest, once restless and anxious, now moved with grace and tranquility. Alara could feel the earth's gratitude in every leaf, every blade of grass, and every breath she took. She smiled softly, knowing that her journey was far from over, but the first step had been completed. The balance had been restored, but it was only the beginning. The land would need guardians, those who would listen to the pulse of the earth and stand ready to protect it from those who sought to harm it. She knew that she was no longer just a wanderer. She was a protector, a steward of the earth's harmony. The spirits had chosen her not just for her connection to the land, but for her heart, a heart that beat in time with the earth, understanding the importance of balance and peace. She was now bound to the earth, as much a part of it as the trees, the rivers, and the stones. And though the land was at peace for now, Alara knew that darkness would one day rise again. The forces that had once threatened the earth had not vanished, they had simply retreated. They would wait, as they always did, for a moment of weakness. But Alara was ready. With the guidance of the spirits and the strength of the earth within her, she would stand against the darkness. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would require more than just courage and strength. It would require wisdom, patience, and the unwavering belief that the earth's pulse, its rhythm, would always guide her. She had learned that the land was not just a place to live but a living, breathing entity, connected to every soul that walked upon it. And it was her duty to ensure that this sacred bond was never broken. As Alara walked back into the heart of the forest, the spirits whispered their final words to her. Alara, you are the Earth's guardian now. The pulse will always guide you. It will lead you through dark times, and in your heart, it will remind you of your purpose. Be patient, be steadfast, and remember, we are always with you. The voice of the spirits faded with the wind, but Alara's heart swelled with warmth. She knew that the journey would be long, but she was no longer alone. The earth and the spirits walked with her, guiding her through every step of her life. As she continued her journey, she would listen to the pulse of the earth, letting it lead her through the challenges that lay ahead, always with the belief that balance, peace, and harmony would triumph in the end. With that, the world around Alara seemed to grow quieter, as though the very earth itself had settled into a deep, peaceful slumber. The sun sank lower, painting the sky with shades of violet and gold, as the first stars began to twinkle in the evening sky. The night was calm, the winds gentle, and the earth's pulse steady, its ancient rhythm now perfectly in sync with the heart of its guardian. And so, Alara continued her path through the forest, the spirits beside her, ready for whatever the future might hold. The world was vast, and the journey was endless, but the pulse of the earth would always be her guide, and with it, she would face whatever challenges arose. As the days passed, Alara's understanding of her role as the Earth's guardian grew. She spent time walking through the forests, rivers, and valleys, listening to the pulse of the land. The spirits often whispered to her in dreams, guiding her, offering wisdom from the ancient times. She had learned that the Earth's pulse was not only a rhythm but a language, one that could tell stories, speak of the past, and warn of future dangers. But the land was vast, and the challenges ahead were many. Alara could feel the shift in the air. Though the darkness had been pushed back, it was not gone. Something had begun to stir in the shadows, deep beneath the earth. It was as if the very roots of the world were disturbed by an ancient, hidden force. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Alara felt the earth tremble. It was a low, rumbling sound, almost like a distant thunder, but it came from the ground itself. She knelt down and pressed her hand to the soil, her heart racing as she listened closely. The pulse is weakening, she whispered to herself, fear creeping into her voice. The steady rhythm that had once filled her with peace now seemed to falter, its beat uneven and strained. She knew then that she had to seek the truth. Something was wrong, something deeper than she could have imagined. That night, as the stars shone brightly above, Alara stood at the edge of the forest, gazing at the horizon. The spirits had not spoken to her directly in the last few days, and the silence only deepened her concern. But just as the silence became unbearable, a soft voice echoed in her mind. Alara, the roots of the earth are not as they seem. There is a darkness that has lived beneath the surface for eons. It stirs now because the balance has been disrupted. You must go to the depths where the earth's heart once pulsed with pure energy. There, you will find the source. The voice faded, leaving Alara in the stillness of the night. She knew what she had to do. She must travel to the deepest caves, far below the earth's surface, to uncover the source of the disturbance. It was there, deep within the heart of the earth, that she would face the true test of her calling. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would take her to the dark, unseen places where the spirits rarely ventured. She would have to trust not only in the pulse of the earth but in herself, her strength, and the wisdom she had gained. With determination in her heart, Alara gathered supplies for the long journey ahead. The spirits were silent, but she knew they would be with her, even if their presence was not felt. The land itself would guide her, and she would listen closely to its whispers. The path to the deep caverns was long and treacherous. Alara climbed over jagged rocks, crossed swift rivers, and ventured through thick forests where the trees seemed to press in on her. But with each step, the earth's pulse grew stronger, as though encouraging her forward. It was as if the very land was awakening, responding to her mission. Days turned into weeks, and soon Alara found herself standing before the entrance to the cavern. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and the temperature dropped as she ventured deeper. The walls of the cave seemed to shimmer with a faint light, but there was an eerie stillness that made Alara's heart beat faster. As she ventured further into the cave, the pulse of the earth became louder, yet it was distorted, twisted, and weak. The closer she got to the heart of the cavern, the more she could feel the pull of the dark force that had been hidden for so long. At the very core of the cave, Alara found an ancient stone, cracked and covered in strange markings. It pulsed with a dark energy, its rhythm completely out of sync with the earth's natural beat. The stone seemed to be drawing power from the very core of the land itself, and Alara knew that this was the source of the disturbance. "The balance is broken," she whispered, her voice trembling. She placed her hands on the stone, feeling its cold surface beneath her fingers. The stone responded with a deep, rumbling sound, and Alara's heart skipped a beat. It was as though the stone was alive with the very darkness that had once threatened the world. But Alara could not falter now. She had come too far. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, and reached out to the pulse of the earth. She could feel it, steady and strong, beneath the stone, beneath the darkness. She focused on that pulse, allowing it to flow through her, filling her with strength and purpose. With a deep breath, Alara spoke the ancient words she had learned from the spirits. They were words of healing, words that had been passed down through generations, words that could restore balance. The stone trembled, and for a moment, the darkness fought back, pushing against the pulse of the earth. But Alara's heart beat with the rhythm of the land, her connection to the earth stronger than ever. The stone cracked, slowly at first, and then with a violent force, it shattered, releasing a burst of light so bright that Alara had to shield her eyes. When the light faded, the cavern was silent. The pulse of the earth was steady once again, its rhythm pure and unbroken. The darkness had been banished, and balance had been restored. Alara stood in the stillness of the cave, her heart racing but her spirit calm. She had done it. The earth was whole once again. The spirits whispered their thanks, their voices filled with warmth and gratitude. "Alara, you have saved us all. The balance is restored, and the pulse of the earth is strong. You are the true guardian." Alara smiled softly, the weight of the journey lifting from her shoulders. She had fulfilled her calling, and the earth was at peace. But she knew that her work would never truly be done. The earth's pulse was eternal, and it was her duty to listen to it, to protect it, and to guide those who needed it. She was not just a wanderer anymore, she was a guardian, and the land would always be her home. With the earth's pulse steady beneath her feet, Alara turned back toward the world she had saved, ready for whatever lay ahead. The days following her victory in the cavern were filled with a quiet peace that had been absent for so long. Alara returned to the village she had once called home, a place she had left in search of answers. The villagers had heard of her deeds, of how she had restored balance to the land, and they greeted her with reverence and gratitude. They could feel the difference in the air. The earth was vibrant once again, and the crops flourished as they had not in years. The rivers ran clear, and the animals, once wary, now moved freely, their presence a sign of harmony restored. But even in this time of celebration, Alara knew that her journey was not over. The earth's pulse was steady once more, but the forces that sought to disrupt it were still lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment. There was much more to be done, for the balance of the world was fragile, and the Earth's guardianship required vigilance. One evening, as Alara sat by the fire in the village, the spirits appeared to her once again. They were ethereal, their forms barely visible in the flickering light, but their presence was undeniable. They whispered to her, their voices like a breeze rustling through the leaves. Alara, the pulse is strong, but there are still cracks in the fabric of the land. The forces of darkness may have retreated, but they have not been destroyed. They will seek new ways to fracture the balance. Your task is not yet finished. You must travel further, beyond the lands you know, to places where the Earth's pulse is faint, where it is almost lost. Alara listened intently, the weight of their words sinking deep into her heart. The spirits spoke of distant lands, places she had never visited, regions where the Earth's pulse had been obscured by time, neglect, and corruption. These were the places where the darkness had first taken root, and they were the places where she would now go to heal. Her heart swelled with both resolve and a twinge of fear. The task before her was daunting. The world was vast, and the dangers unknown. But Alara knew that she could not ignore the call. She was the guardian now, bound to the land, and the Earth's pulse beat within her. It was her duty to protect it. The following morning, she gathered her belongings, taking only what was necessary for the long journey ahead. The villagers bid her farewell, their faces filled with both admiration and sorrow. They knew that Alara's path was one that few would walk, and that her journey would not be without hardship. But they also knew that she was the one who had saved them, the one who had restored the Earth's harmony. And so, with their blessings, Alara set forth on her next adventure. Her travels took her through forests that stretched for miles, across vast deserts that seemed to go on forever, and over mountains that scraped the sky. Each land she passed through spoke to her, telling stories of long-forgotten times, of the rise and fall of civilizations, of harmony and disharmony. And with each new place, she could feel the Earth's pulse growing weaker, like a heart struggling to beat. But Alara was undeterred. She knew what had to be done. In every town and village she visited, she spoke with the people, listened to their tales, and offered her guidance. She helped to restore their connection to the land, teaching them to listen to the Earth's pulse, to respect it, and to protect it. Slowly but surely, the Earth's pulse began to grow stronger, echoing through the lands once more. Yet, not all was as it seemed. In one particular village, Alara sensed an unusual resistance. The Earth's pulse here was faint, almost non-existent, and the people seemed withdrawn, as if they had lost their connection to the land. They went about their lives in a state of apathy, as if they no longer cared for the world around them. Curious and concerned, Alara sought out the village elder. She found him in a small, dimly lit hut, his eyes clouded with age and sorrow. When she asked him about the village's condition, he spoke in a low, almost mournful voice. "The pulse has gone silent here, guardian," he said, his voice shaking. "We once lived in harmony with the earth, but the land has been tainted. There are forces at work, unseen and dangerous, that seek to silence the pulse forever. We do not know where it comes from or how to fight it." Alara felt a chill run through her. She had heard whispers of such forces, ancient powers that sought to sever the connection between the land and its people. The pulse of the earth was the thread that tied them together, and without it, the land would wither and die. Determined to help, Alara ventured deep into the forest outside the village, following the faint traces of the earth's pulse. The further she went, the stronger the sense of darkness became. It was as if the very ground beneath her feet had become diseased, its pulse hollow and unnatural. At the heart of the forest, she found a clearing, and in the center of it stood a large, twisted tree. Its bark was blackened, its branches gnarled and barren. The air around it was thick with an oppressive energy, and Alara could feel the earth's pulse struggling beneath her feet. She stepped forward cautiously, sensing that the tree was the source of the disturbance. The tree was no ordinary tree, it was a vessel, a conduit for the dark forces that sought to sever the bond between the earth and its people. This was no simple task, it was a corruption, a wound in the heart of the earth. The spirits whispered to her, their voices urgent. Alara, this is the work of the Shadowbinders. They have twisted the pulse, making it their own. You must cleanse this corruption, but be warned, the darkness will fight back. With resolve in her heart, Alara raised her hand toward the twisted tree, calling upon the earth's pulse. She focused all her energy on the rhythm of the land, letting it fill her completely. The earth's pulse, steady and strong, began to clash with the twisted energy of the tree. The air crackled with power as Alara fought to restore balance. The tree trembled, its dark energy fighting against her efforts, but Alara's connection to the earth was stronger. She chanted the ancient words of healing, words that had been passed down through the generations, and slowly but surely, the corruption began to fade. With a final burst of energy, the tree shattered, its twisted form collapsing into the earth. The dark energy dissipated, and the land breathed a sigh of relief. The pulse of the earth, steady and pure, flowed freely once more. Exhausted but triumphant, Alara stood in the clearing, listening to the gentle hum of the earth's pulse. It was stronger than ever, and the village would heal. The Shadowbinders had been defeated, but Alara knew that the battle was not over. There would be more challenges, more forces to face, but she was ready. The spirits appeared once again, their voices filled with pride. Alara, you have restored the pulse. You are the true guardian. The earth's rhythm will always guide you. And with that, Alara turned toward the horizon, knowing that her journey was far from over. The earth's pulse was eternal, and she would protect it for as long as she lived. As Alara continued her travels, the lands she passed through began to show signs of recovery. The villages, once barren and broken, were slowly healing. People were reconnecting with the earth, learning once again how to listen to its pulse. The land was alive once more, and each day, Alara felt her heartbeat in harmony with it. But not all was as it seemed. In a distant, forgotten valley, a new challenge awaited her. The earth's pulse, though steady in many places, had begun to flicker and fade in one region. The once vibrant forests were now shadowed by an ominous silence, and the air felt thick with unease. The soil had become dry and cracked, and the trees that once stood tall and proud were withering, their leaves falling before their time. Alara knew that this was no natural occurrence. The forces that had threatened the balance of the earth were stirring once more. She could sense them, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to strike. Determined to uncover the source of this new disturbance, Alara ventured into the valley. The deeper she traveled, the more the land seemed to resist her presence. The pulse of the earth was faint, almost imperceptible, as if something was actively suppressing it. The trees grew twisted and gnarled, their roots tangled in the earth like shackles. It was then that Alara encountered a figure standing in the center of the valley. It was a woman, draped in dark robes, her face obscured by a hood. Her presence radiated an unnatural coldness, and Alara could feel the weight of her power. The woman stood motionless, her hands outstretched as if drawing something from the earth itself. "Who are you?" Alara asked, her voice steady but filled with caution. The woman turned slowly, revealing eyes that glowed like embers, burning with a fierce, malevolent light. "I am called Avarice," she said, her voice like the rustling of dead leaves. "I have come to silence the pulse. The earth's rhythm is a lie. It is a trap, a cycle of endless renewal that binds us all to a false hope. I will break that cycle. Alara's heart sank as she realized the gravity of the situation. Avarice was a being of darkness, one who sought to sever the earth's connection to its people. She was not merely a threat to the land's harmony, she was an embodiment of chaos itself. You cannot silence the pulse, Alara replied, her voice unwavering. The earth's rhythm is eternal. It cannot be destroyed. Avarice laughed, a sound that echoed like a mocking wind through the barren valley. You are a fool, guardian. You do not understand. The earth's pulse is not a blessing, it is a chain. And I will break it, just as I will break you. With a flick of her wrist, Avarice summoned a wave of dark energy that surged toward Alara. The ground beneath Alara's feet cracked and split as the power of the shadow attacked the very heart of the earth. The air grew cold, and the pulse of the land flickered, as if gasping for air. Alara, her body trembling, raised her hands and called upon the power of the earth. The connection between her and the land was strong enough to withstand the darkness that threatened to overwhelm her. She focused on the pulse, letting its rhythm flow through her, finding the strength to fight back. You cannot win, Avarice. Alara shouted, her voice rising over the din of the battle. The earth will always find a way to heal. You cannot fight its nature. Avarice's eyes narrowed, her hands crackling with dark energy. We shall see, guardian. I will see to it that the pulse is extinguished. And when it is, the world will belong to me. The battle between light and shadow raged on, the earth itself groaning under the strain. The valley trembled as Alara and Avarice clashed, their powers colliding with the force of storms. But despite the overwhelming darkness, Alara felt the pulse of the earth growing stronger, her connection to it deepening. She was not alone in this fight, the land itself stood with her. Drawing upon this strength, Alara summoned all her power, calling upon the ancient forces of the earth. The pulse surged, breaking through the shadows that clung to the land. With a cry of defiance, she channeled the earth's energy into a wave of light that surged toward Avarice. The dark woman screamed as the light engulfed her, her form disintegrating into nothingness. The earth's pulse, once flickering and weak, exploded in a brilliant burst of life and energy, pushing back the darkness that had sought to silence it. As the light faded, the valley fell silent once more. The oppressive air lifted, and the land began to heal. The trees, once twisted and dying, stood tall again, their leaves shimmering in the light. The soil became rich and fertile once more, and the earth's pulse, steady and strong, hummed beneath Alara's feet. Alara stood amidst the healing land, breathing deeply. The battle had been fierce, but the earth had triumphed. Avarice had been defeated, but Alara knew that there would always be others who sought to disrupt the balance. She could never let her guard down. The spirits appeared to her once again, their forms glowing with pride. You have done it, Alara, they said. You have restored the pulse once more. The land will thrive because of you. Alara nodded, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her journey was far from over. But she also felt a deep sense of peace. The pulse of the earth was stronger than ever, and as long as she drew breath, she would protect it. With a final look at the valley, Alara turned and walked toward the horizon, the rhythm of the earth beneath her feet guiding her every step. There would always be more to do, but she was ready. For as long as the earth's pulse beat, she would stand as its guardian. As Alara walked, the land seemed to whisper its gratitude. The pulse of the earth, once again steady and strong, carried her forward. But as she journeyed on, she couldn't help but wonder if the darkness she had defeated was truly gone or if something darker lurked just out of sight. Her thoughts were interrupted when she reached the edge of a vast and ancient forest. The trees here were towering giants, their roots intertwined with the very heart of the earth. Their bark was thick with age, and their branches stretched high into the sky, as though they were trying to touch the stars. There was something different about this forest, something she had not felt in any other place she had visited. The air was heavy with a quiet, ancient power, and the earth beneath her feet seemed to hum with a deep, resonant energy. Alara stepped forward, her heart beating in time with the pulse of the earth. The spirits of the land had not appeared to her in this place, and yet she felt a presence, something wise and ancient watching over her. As she ventured deeper into the forest, she felt an undeniable pull, as if the trees themselves were calling to her. The deeper she went, the more the world around her seemed to shift. The forest grew quieter, as though holding its breath. The trees, though vast and old, seemed to be waiting. At the heart of the forest, she found an ancient clearing. In the center stood a massive stone circle, weathered by time but still standing strong. The stone's surface was etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with an energy Alara had never felt before. Kneeling before the stones, Alara placed her hand gently on one of them. The moment her fingers touched the surface, a surge of energy shot through her, and the earth's pulse seemed to accelerate, resonating with the stones. The symbols on the stones began to glow, and the earth around her trembled. Alara, a voice whispered, soft and deep, as though coming from the earth itself. She looked up in surprise, but the forest was still and silent. Yet the voice filled her mind, calm and powerful, like the heartbeat of the world. "Who speaks?" Alara asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I am the spirit of the forest," the voice replied. "I have watched over this land for centuries, guarding its secrets. You have restored the pulse of the earth, but there are deeper layers to its rhythm that only those who seek with a pure heart can understand." Alara listened intently, her mind racing with questions. "What secrets do you guard?" "The earth is not just a place," the spirit said, its voice becoming more resonant. "It is a living, breathing entity. Every tree, every stone, every river, and every breeze carries its essence. But there are those who do not understand this, those who seek to exploit it, to use it for their own gain." Alara frowned. "I've seen this before. Avarice, and others like her. They seek to break the earth's connection to its people." "Yes," the spirit replied. "But the darkness that seeks to sever the bond with the earth is not always a simple, external force. It can grow within the hearts of those who forget their connection to the land, who lose their way in the pursuit of power." Alara's heart sank. "What must I do?" "You have already begun the journey," the spirit of the forest said. "But your task is not yet complete. There are forces, hidden deep within the earth, that are beginning to stir once more. You must seek the ancient places, where the land's pulse was first born. There, you will find the answers to the questions that have haunted you. And only then will you be able to fully protect the rhythm of the earth." Alara stood, her resolve strengthening. "I will find these places. I will uncover the truth." The spirit's voice softened, almost like a lullaby. "Remember, Alara, the pulse of the earth is not only a force to be guarded, it is a gift. It connects us all. The more you seek to understand it, the more you will understand yourself." With these words, the voice of the spirit faded, leaving Alara alone in the clearing, the symbols on the stone glowing faintly in the moonlight. She took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, steady and sure. There was much more to learn, and her journey was far from over. As Alara turned and made her way out of the forest, she knew that her path was taking her to places she had not yet imagined. She had fought battles before, but this new journey would challenge her in ways she could not yet understand. But with the pulse of the earth guiding her, she felt ready. Whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the knowledge that the rhythm of the earth was her ally. Alara traveled far from the heart of the forest, carrying the wisdom she had gained from the spirit of the forest within her. The path ahead was uncertain, but her determination grew stronger with each step. The earth whispered to her, guiding her forward, as if the land itself was alive with its own intentions. In the days that followed, Alara visited ancient places, forgotten caves beneath towering mountains, mystical springs hidden deep in valleys, and sacred groves where the oldest trees stood guard over time itself. Each location revealed secrets of the earth's rhythm, secrets that had been hidden for millennia. She learned that the pulse of the earth was not a single, unified beat. It was a symphony, a complex weave of energies that intertwined and resonated across the land. Some places were stronger than others, their energies so powerful that they could heal or destroy depending on who wielded them. Others were more subtle, quiet yet no less important. These places were the veins of the world, channels through which the earth's essence flowed. As Alara traveled from place to place, she met wise beings who guarded these sacred spots, ancient druids, sages, who could communicate with the very rocks and rivers, and creatures who had lived in harmony with the land for as long as time itself. They all recognized her as the guardian, and they offered her their wisdom. It was in one of these sacred groves, nestled high in the mountains, where she met an elder druid named Kylam. His hair and beard were as white as snow, and his eyes glowed with the wisdom of centuries. He was known as the Keeper of the Pulse, the one who had protected the balance of the earth's rhythm for as long as anyone could remember. Kylam had watched Alara's journey from afar and was now ready to reveal to her the final piece of the puzzle. "Alara," he said in a voice like the wind through the trees, "you have traveled far and learned much, but you are only at the beginning. The pulse of the earth is not just about protecting it. It is about understanding it on a deeper level, understanding its heart." "Understanding its heart?" Alara asked, intrigued. "What do you mean?" "The pulse is not just a force of nature," Kylam explained. "It is the very essence of life itself. It is a reflection of the harmony between all living things, humans, animals, plants, and even the elements. When one part of the pulse is disturbed, it affects everything. The earth feels pain, just as you do." Alara felt a chill run down her spine. "So, when the earth suffers, it is not just the land that suffers. It is all of us." Kylam nodded. "Yes. But the earth also holds the power to heal itself, just as you have seen. And you, Alara, have been chosen to help guide it through its healing. You must learn to listen to the heart of the earth, to feel its pain, its joy, its sorrow, and its hope. Only then can you truly protect it." Alara stood silently, feeling the weight of Kylam's words. The earth's pulse was not just a force to be defended, it was a living, breathing entity. And her role was not only to protect it, but to understand it as part of herself. "There is something more you must know," Kylam continued. "There are those who wish to disrupt this balance. A dark force, older than avarice, stirs beneath the surface of the earth. It is an ancient, primal power that seeks to consume the pulse, to turn it into chaos. It is called the Void." "The Void?" Alara repeated, her heart racing. "What is it?" "The Void is the absence of the pulse," Kylam said gravely. "It is the ultimate corruption, a force that seeks to undo the very essence of life. It feeds on imbalance, on pain, on destruction. It is the opposite of the pulse, the emptiness that seeks to swallow the world whole." Alara's breath caught in her throat. "And how can I stop it?" Kylam's eyes glinted with the weight of centuries of knowledge. "To stop the void, you must reach the heart of the earth. It is a place where the pulse begins, a sacred center that holds the power to heal all wounds. But the path to the heart is not easy. It is hidden, lost to time. The void has been searching for it for eons, and now, you must find it before it does." The gravity of the task settled on Alara's shoulders. The void, a force that could erase everything she had fought to protect, was closer than ever. Yet she could not falter, not now, not when the earth's pulse was so fragile. She knew what she had to do. I will find the heart of the earth, Alara declared, her voice resolute. And I will stop the void. Kylam smiled, a faint glimmer of hope in his ancient eyes. You are the guardian, Alara. You have the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to face this challenge. But remember, the path to the heart is not one of force. It is a journey of understanding. You must listen to the earth's pulse, feel its rhythm, and trust in the harmony between all things. With those words, Kylam placed his hand on Alara's shoulder. May the pulse guide you, he said, and with that, he disappeared into the forest, leaving her standing alone at the crossroads of her destiny. Alara took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. The journey ahead would not be easy, but she was ready. She knew that the answers she sought were not just in the land, but in herself. The heart of the earth awaited her, and she would find it no matter the cost. Alara's journey took her across the vast expanse of the land, from the highest peaks to the deepest caves, guided by the pulse of the earth. She had learned much about the rhythm of the world, the harmony between all living things, and the ancient forces that shaped the land. But the knowledge she had gained only deepened the mystery of what lay ahead. The void loomed larger in her mind, a dark force that could unravel everything she had worked to protect. Her first task was to locate the heart of the earth, a place hidden deep within the earth, where the pulse began. Kylam had warned her that the path to the heart would be fraught with challenges not of strength, but of understanding. The void was an insidious force, one that sought to corrupt the balance of life itself. To find the heart, she would need to listen more closely to the earth, to feel its pulse not just as a force, but as a part of herself. Days turned into weeks as Alara traveled, crossing deserts, forests, and fields, following the subtle signs the earth left for her. She could feel the pulse growing stronger as she ventured deeper into the world's forgotten corners. The winds whispered ancient secrets, the rocks hummed with power, and the rivers sang songs of distant memories. She felt herself becoming more attuned to the earth's language, its subtle currents of energy guiding her forward. One evening, as Alara rested by a river, she felt a shift in the Ira's sudden, unsettling stillness. The earth beneath her feet seemed to tremble, and the distant sky darkened. The pulse of the earth, which had always been steady and rhythmic, now faltered, as though it were gasping for breath. A chill ran through Alara's spine. She looked toward the horizon, where the shadows were gathering like a storm. The void was near. She stood, her heart pounding. I must move forward, she whispered to herself, determination taking hold of her. The earth was in pain, and she could feel it in her bones. It needed her now more than ever. Alara set out once again, her senses heightened, her every step guided by the pulse beneath her feet. She knew she was drawing closer to the heart. The land was calling to her, the rhythm of the earth guiding her toward the place where all life began. After several more days of travel, Alara reached the entrance to a hidden valley, tucked away between jagged mountains. The air here was thick with ancient power, and the pulse of the earth was stronger than she had ever felt before. It was as though the very ground beneath her feet was alive, vibrating with energy. She knew she had found at the heart of the earth. At the center of the valley stood a massive stone altar, covered in intricate runes that glowed with an ethereal light. The stone was ancient, its surface worn smooth by time, and it seemed to hum with an energy that resonated deep within her soul. Alara approached the altar slowly, her heart racing in her chest. As she placed her hands on the stone, the pulse of the earth surged through her, filling her with an overwhelming sense of peace and power. She could feel the history of the land in every vibration, the countless lives that had lived and died, the growth of forests, the rise and fall of mountains, the endless cycle of life and death. It was all connected, every living thing, every breath of wind, every drop of water. All of it was part of the pulse. And then, as she closed her eyes and focused, she felt it. The void. It was a dark, cold presence, creeping like a shadow across the land. She could feel it reaching out, trying to devour the pulse, to swallow the light of the earth. The rhythm faltered, the land shuddered, and for a brief moment, Alara feared that the void had already won. But then she remembered Kylem's words, the path to the heart is not one of force. It is a journey of understanding. She took a deep breath, centering herself. She couldn't fight the void with strength alone. She needed to understand it. To listen to its pain, its emptiness. She reached out with her heart, letting go of her fear, and allowed herself to feel the void. What she felt was not simply darkness, it was a vast, consuming emptiness. It was the absence of the pulse, the absence of life itself. It was a force that longed for connection, but in its hunger, it had forgotten the rhythm of life. It had become lost in its own void. Alara closed her eyes and let the pulse of the earth fill her once more, steady and sure. The void could not exist in the presence of the earth's rhythm. It was a force that sought balance, and in the end, balance would be restored. But first, it had to be reminded. With a single thought, Alara called upon the power of the earth, reaching deep into the stone, into the roots of the land, into the very heart of the world. She let the pulse guide her, using its power not to fight, but to remind the void of the rhythm it had forgotten. The earth trembled as the pulse surged, and for a moment, the void seemed to recoil, its cold tendrils pulling back. The stone beneath Alara's hands vibrated, and the runes on the altar glowed brighter, as though the heart of the earth itself was awakening. And then, with a final surge of energy, the void began to dissipate, like smoke in the wind. The earth's pulse steadied, and the land breathed again, alive with its ancient rhythm. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted but triumphant. The heart of the earth had been protected, and the void had been pushed back, perhaps for good. But she knew that her work was far from over. The earth was always changing, always evolving, and it would need her guidance for as long as she lived. As she stood and looked around the valley, she felt a deep sense of peace. The pulse of the earth was strong once more, and she was its guardian. She had found the heart, and in doing so, had found her place in the world, forever connected to the rhythm of the earth. Alara stood at the center of the valley, the pulse of the earth thrumming steadily beneath her feet. The void had been pushed back, but she knew that it wasn't truly gone. The earth had its wounds, but its strength had prevailed this time. However, deep within her, Alara understood that the balance she had protected was fragile, and the battle was far from over. She had learned much from her journey, but the wisdom imparted by the spirit of the forest, Kylem, and the earth itself was still unraveling. Each step forward revealed deeper layers of the mystery of the earth's rhythm, its heartbeat, its flow, and she had come to realize that her role was not just as a protector, but as a mediator. A bridge between the forces of life and the ancient darkness that sought to undo them. Alara closed her eyes and breathed deeply, feeling the steady pulse beneath her. She could still sense the lingering shadows of the void, but now it was different. The land was healing, the wounds closing, but a quiet voice inside her told her there was still something she needed to do. The spirit of the forest's words echoed in her mind: to protect the earth, you must understand the rhythm of its heart. The void exists not just in the darkness, but in the silence. It is the absence of connection, the loss of harmony. Your task is not just to protect, it is to restore. With a new sense of clarity, Alara set off once more, following the pulse of the earth as it led her toward new horizons. She knew now that her journey was not over, it was evolving. As Alara walked through the dense forest, where the trees whispered secrets only the most attuned could hear, she came upon a familiar sight: a massive tree that towered above all the others. This ancient tree, known as the Mother Tree, had long been revered as the keeper of wisdom. She had visited this place before, but now it called to her with urgency. "Alara," a voice spoke, as if carried on the wind, but unmistakably coming from the tree itself. "You have done well, but the path ahead will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine." Alara approached the tree, resting her hand upon its ancient bark, feeling its pulse resonate with her own. The Mother Tree's energy flowed through her like a river, calm yet powerful. "You feel it, do you not?" The tree continued. "The earth is healing, but not all wounds are visible. The void is far-reaching, and it leaves marks on the land that cannot be seen, only felt. You are needed, Alara, to restore the balance of not just the land, but the hearts of those who walk upon it." "What do you mean?" Alara asked, confusion rising. "I thought I had done what was needed." The tree's branches swayed gently, as though it were sighing. "The land may heal in time, but the hearts of those who inhabit it are in turmoil. The earth's pulse is reflected in the hearts of its people. And in this time, the people have forgotten the rhythm, the connection to the earth, to each other. Without this bond, the void will always find a way to creep in." Alara's heart sank as she understood the gravity of the tree's words. It wasn't just the land that needed healing, it was the hearts of the people. The land and the people were inseparable, and if the people lost their connection to the earth, the void would find a way to return. The Mother Tree continued. "There is a place, deep in the mountains, where the veil between the worlds is thin. There, the hearts of the people can be reminded of the earth's rhythm. It is a place of great power where the pulse of the earth and the souls of the people intertwine. You must go there, Alara, and restore the bond between them." Alara nodded, understanding the weight of the task ahead. The people were losing their way, disconnected from the land and its pulse. Without their hearts in tune with the earth, the rhythm would falter, and the void would find its way back. She had to remind them of their connection to the earth, to the pulse that sustained them. "Where is this place?" she asked, her resolve solidifying. The Mother Tree's voice grew quieter, yet more insistent. "Follow the pulse, Alara. It will lead you." With a final touch of the tree's bark, Alara turned away and began her journey once again. The land seemed to respond to her resolve, the pulse guiding her through familiar paths and new landscapes alike. She knew that the people would not recognize the importance of the task at hand, not at first, but she would find a way to bring them back into harmony with the earth. Days passed as Alara journeyed deep into the mountains, the terrain becoming more rugged and challenging. The air grew thin, the forests gave way to rocky cliffs, and the earth's pulse grew stronger, more intense. The mountains themselves seemed alive with energy, their ancient roots buried deep beneath the stone. Finally, after days of travel, Alara reached the place she had been searching for, a valley hidden among the peaks, where the pulse of the earth converged. It was a sacred place, a forgotten temple, long abandoned by those who had once known its power. The stone walls were etched with symbols that seemed to hum with energy, and the air was thick with the earth's resonance. Alara stood in the center of the temple, closing her eyes and feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her. She could sense it, the connection between all things, the rhythm of life that had been forgotten. She reached out, calling to the hearts of the people who had once been connected to this place. The earth responded. Slowly, as though it were waking from a long slumber, the symbols on the walls began to glow. The air shimmered, and the pulse of the earth grew louder, stronger. Alara opened her eyes, and before her stood the spirits of the people who had once lived here, ancient guardians of the land, their faces calm but sorrowful. "We have waited, Alara," one spirit spoke. "The bond has been broken, but you have come to restore it. Alara stepped forward, her heart filled with purpose. I will restore the rhythm, not just for the land, but for the people as well. The spirits nodded, and the pulse of the earth surged once more. Alara reached out, connecting her own heart to the spirits, to the land, to the pulse. She could feel it, the heartbeat of the world, thumping in her chest, as the spirits joined her in their shared rhythm. And in that moment, the bond was restored. As the bond was restored, Alara felt a wave of energy surge through her, connecting not only with the spirits but also with the very soul of the land. The pulse, once a distant hum, now beat in time with her heart. For the first time, Alara understood the depth of the earth's power. It was not just an element of nature, it was alive, a living being with memories, desires, and a pulse that echoed through time. The spirits of the ancient guardians gathered around her, their ethereal forms shimmering with an ancient light. Their faces, though faded by the ages, carried expressions of hope and gratitude. You have done it, one of the spirits, a tall figure with long flowing hair, said. You have awakened the heart of the earth. Now, the people must awaken as well. Alara nodded solemnly, knowing the next part of her journey would be the most difficult yet. The people, those who had forgotten the earth's pulse, needed to remember. The earth could heal, but without the people's connection, the rhythm would eventually fade again. You must go back, the spirit continued. Return to the lands where the pulse is weakest, and remind the people of their bond with the earth. Only then will balance truly be restored. Alara turned, the weight of the task ahead pressing heavily on her. The mountain valley, once so quiet, now seemed alive with a power that hummed through the air. The pulse of the earth was strong here, but beyond this valley, the lands she had traveled were still suffering from the darkness of the void. With a final glance at the spirits, Alara made her way back through the mountains, the pulse of the earth guiding her every step. As she traveled, she saw the signs of the earth's recovery. The plants seemed greener, the air clearer. But the people, she knew, were still unaware of the changes that had occurred beneath their feet. She returned to the village where her journey had begun, where she had first felt the pull of the earth's heartbeat. There, she found the people struggling, still lost in their ways. The void's influence still lingered in their hearts. Fear, greed, and disconnection had driven them to ignore the land's needs. Alara entered the village quietly, knowing she had to find a way to reach them. She spoke to the elders, the wise ones of the village, but their eyes were clouded with doubt. They spoke of survival, of the harshness of the world, and of the need to abandon old ways in favor of progress. The rhythm of the earth seemed like an ancient myth to them. But Alara knew that to heal the land, she had to heal the hearts of the people. She had to help them understand that their fates were intertwined with the pulse of the earth. Without it, they would wither, just as the earth would falter without their care. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Alara stood in the center of the village, facing the people who had gathered to listen. The air was thick with tension. The villagers were skeptical, but she could feel the stirrings of doubt. There was still a flicker of connection within them, even if they couldn't see it yet. Alara, one of the elders, called, her voice trembling with uncertainty. What do you want us to believe? That the earth has a heart? That we are connected to it in ways we cannot see? Alara nodded, her voice steady and sure. Yes, I want you to believe that the earth is alive, that its pulse beats in time with ours. We are not separate from it, we are part of it. When we disconnect from the land, we lose our way. And when the earth suffers, so do we. She paused, watching the faces of the villagers, their eyes wary, but there was a glimmer of something else, something ancient and buried deep within. They were listening. The earth has shown me its heart, Alara continued. I have felt its pulse, and I know that it is healing. But it cannot heal alone. We must remember how to listen to its rhythm. We must remember how to care for it, just as it cares for us. A soft breeze rustled through the trees as if the earth itself were speaking, urging them to listen. The elder who had spoken before stepped forward, her voice softer now. "And what would you have us do, Alara? How can we listen to something we have long since forgotten?" Alara smiled gently, feeling the connection between them deepening. "We must start by being still. We must listen. The earth speaks in ways we often cannot hear. But if we slow down, if we reconnect with the land, it will show us the way." She closed her eyes, letting the pulse of the earth flow through her once more. It was faint at first, but soon it grew stronger, resonating in harmony with her heart. She reached out, offering the villagers a simple prayer, a moment of stillness, a chance to listen. Slowly, they did. One by one, the villagers closed their eyes, the weight of their doubts easing. The earth's rhythm filled the air, steady and calm, and for the first time in a long while, they allowed themselves to feel the pulse beneath their feet. The ground seemed to hum with life, and the wind whispered a message of renewal. In that moment, something changed. The villagers began to speak softly, sharing their own stories of the land, of how they had once lived in harmony with the earth, of how they had long ago forgotten its rhythms, and of their desire to return to that forgotten connection. Alara watched as their hearts began to open, the healing beginning in their souls. The earth had called to them, and they had heard its plea. And as the moon rose over the valley, Alara knew that the rhythm of the earth had been restored. But the work was not yet done. The people had been reminded of their connection, but the journey of renewal would take time, patience, and understanding. But for now, Alara stood among them, the pulse of the earth beating steadily beneath her feet, knowing that the path ahead was one of hope and healing. And as the winds whispered through the trees, Alara felt the earth's heartbeat in her chest, strong and unwavering. The connection was restored, and with it, the future was once again in balance. That's the end of today's story. See you.